When you think of theft, you imagine burglars, con artists, maybe Wall Street executives. But what if the biggest theft in modern history did not happen with guns or masks, but with printing presses and policy meetings? What if the people who promised to protect your money were quietly draining its value every single day? This is the story of how the Federal Reserve printed $4.5 trillion and silently stole 30% of your purchasing power. It begins in 2020, a year the world shut down. Governments panicked, economies froze, and the US Federal Reserve decided to unleash something unprecedented. They called it quantitative easing, a term that sounds harmless, even technical, but behind those words was a printing spree unlike anything in history. In a matter of months, the Fed created trillions out of thin air, injecting it into the financial system to keep markets alive. The stock market soared, housing prices exploded, and for a brief moment it looked like the plan worked. But here is the hidden truth. Money does not come from nowhere. When the Fed creates new dollars, the value of the old ones decreases. It is the same pie, just sliced into more pieces. The more slices there are, the smaller each one becomes. That is inflation. And it is how the average American lost nearly a third of their real wealth without even realizing it. Between 2020 and 2022, the cost of living skyrocketed. Groceries, rent, fuel, everything climbed. Wages did not. Your paycheck could buy less. That is not coincidence. That is policy. The government told you it was supply chain issues or global turmoil, but inflation was baked into the system the moment the Fed hit print. $4.5 trillion new dollars flooded the economy, chasing the same amount of goods. Prices reacted exactly as economics predicted. What few understood is who benefited. Because this theft was not equal. When money is created, it does not rain down evenly. It starts at the top banks, hedge funds, corporations, then slowly trickles down. By the time it reaches the ordinary person, prices have already risen. The rich buy assets before inflation hits. The poor face inflation before their income adjusts. That is the cruel magic of the system, a silent transfer of wealth from savers to debtors, from workers to asset holders, from you to them. The Fed's mandate is to ensure stability, but in practice, it stabilizes the market, not the household. When Wall Street trembles, it prints money. When Main Street struggles, it tightens policy. In 2020, the money printer became a lifeline for the rich. The S&P doubled. Billionaires gained over $2 trillion in wealth. Homeowners watched their property values soar, while renters were priced out overnight. Everyone celebrated the recovery, but few realized what it cost. The value of your dollar eroded. A dollar from 2019 now buys 70 cents of what it once did. The invisible hand of inflation had taken more from you than any tax ever could. And here is the brutal part: it was not a mistake. Inflation is not an accident. It is a tool. Governments use it to reduce the real burden of their debt. Think about it. If you owe $30 trillion and you inflate the currency by 30%, your debt becomes 30% cheaper to pay back. But the money you hold, your savings, your income, they lose the same value. So in effect, every time the Fed prints, it is not stimulating growth. It is taxing you without passing a law. This hidden tax is what economists call seigniorage, the profit made by issuing currency. Except in this case, the profit went to Wall Street, and the cost fell on you. The cruel genius of this system is that it feels invisible. Prices rise slowly, paychecks lag, and by the time you notice, it is too late. The politicians blame corporations, the media blames geopolitics, and the central bankers blame temporary factors. But behind all of it lies the printing press. The theft is hidden in plain sight. Look at the charts. Between 2008 and 2020, the US money supply grew at a moderate rate. Then came the pandemic. The graph shoots up like a rocket. Trillions of new dollars were added. And yet productivity did not grow. The pie stayed the same. Only the paper claims increased. This disconnect is why the cost of living crisis is not just about prices, it is about power. Because when money loses meaning, control shifts to those who can create it. Ordinary people are forced to play a game where the rules change without warning. You save, you budget, you work hard, but the money itself is melting in your hands. The middle class becomes poor, the rich become untouchable, and the cycle repeats. Now imagine this from the perspective of the Fed. Every time the market crashes, they print. Every time inflation rises, they raise rates. Each move creates winners and losers. They have become the referee and the player in the same game. And if you think this is over, it is not. The inflation wave you felt from 2021 to 2023 was just the beginning. The debt has not gone away. In fact, it has grown. The US national debt now stands at over $34 trillion, a number so large it is almost meaningless. To pay that back honestly would be impossible. The only way out is to inflate it away. Which means the next printing cycle is inevitable. And when it comes, the same story will repeat. The headlines will say it is necessary. The markets will celebrate. But your purchasing power will quietly fall again. Inflation is not just an economic event, it is psychological warfare. It trains people to spend instead of save, to borrow instead of build, to depend on credit instead of cash. It rewards risk and punishes prudence. And in doing so, it reshapes society. Families that once lived on one income now need two. Retirees who plan for safety are forced back into the market chasing yield. The very concept of money as a store of value erodes. And yet the architects of this system act like heroes. They call it monetary policy, they give it acronyms and jargon. But strip away the technicalities, and it is simple. They created money that did not exist and exchanged it for your future labor. Every new dollar printed is a claim on goods, services, and effort that you will have to produce later. That is why inflation feels like theft, because it is. It steals time, effort, and value from those who cannot print their way out. And that is everyone except the people at the top. Around this point in your video, drop your CTA naturally something like, if you are tired of this hidden wealth drain and want to understand how to protect yourself, subscribe. We decode the money games they do not want you to see. Keep it calm but confident. The emotional peak is right before this. Then continue into part 2 seamlessly with the line. But this is not just history, it is the blueprint for what is coming next. But this is not just history, it is a blueprint for what is coming next. Because the same system that printed $4.5 trillion to save the economy has trapped itself in a cycle it cannot escape. Every crisis now demands more money, every slowdown needs another injection, and every rescue plants the seed of the next disaster. What began as an emergency measure has become permanent policy. The Fed cannot stop printing because the entire structure of modern finance depends on it. Debt is no longer a problem to solve, it is the foundation everything stands on. Governments, corporations, even consumers all survive on borrowed money. But here is the catch. When interest rates rise to fight inflation, the cost of servicing that debt explodes. In 2025, the US government is paying over $1 trillion a year just in interest. That is more than it spends on national defense. The debt is growing faster than the economy that is supposed to support it. So what happens next? There are only two ways out: default or debase. No government in history has ever chosen to default when it can print, which means inflation is not going away. It might slow down, it might pause, but it will never disappear because it is the easiest way to erase debt without admitting it. And while the headlines say inflation is cooling, the truth is that prices never go back down. Once your grocery bill doubles, it does not halve again. The damage is permanent. The new normal becomes accepted, and the slow theft continues quietly in the background. The next phase will be even more dangerous because people are numb to it. They will accept rising prices as just part of life, not realizing they are losing wealth every day. The Fed knows this. It relies on it. If people fully understood how inflation works, there would be riots. But since it happens gradually, it feels invisible. The system survives on confusion. The average citizen blames the store owner blames the supplier, and the supplier blames the world. Few ever look up the chain to see where the new money actually comes from. This confusion is why the cycle keeps repeating. The Fed claims to fight inflation by raising rates, but every rate hike slows growth, which forces them to eventually print again to prevent a collapse. It is a trap of their own making. The market expects intervention, the government demands liquidity, and the public accepts the consequences. This endless loop is the reason wealth inequality grows decade after decade. The top 1% owns most assets, and assets benefit from inflation. The rest earn wages, and wages lag behind. The gap widens with every cycle. And now, with AI, automation, and digital economies rising, the gap is turning into a canyon. The Fed will never admit it, but inflation is not just economic, it is political. It is how power sustains itself. By inflating, they quietly tax everyone without ever asking permission. Politicians can spend endlessly, fund wars, create programs, and still claim they are not raising taxes. The printing press does the dirty work. The people pay through higher prices, and few ever connect the dots. It is the perfect crime. Theft without fingerprints. But there is another layer to this. The digital layer. The next chapter of this story is the introduction of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. These digital dollars are sold as convenience and safety, but they represent the ultimate form of control. Once money becomes programmable, inflation and taxation can be managed at the push of a button. Want to stimulate spending? They can set your money to expire after 6 months. Want to fight inflation? They can limit what categories you are allowed to purchase. It is the evolution of the same system, just more efficient. The same theft, now with software. And when that comes, privacy, savings, and financial independence will shrink even faster. Because programmable money means programmable lives. This is where the cycle leads. A society where every transaction is tracked, every dollar is controlled, and value itself becomes subjective. But it will not come overnight. It will arrive during the next crisis. Because crisis is always the excuse. The pattern is predictable. Panic, print, promise stability, then reset the system. The inflation theft will evolve, not vanish. They will frame it as modernization, as digital progress, but it will still be the same transfer of value from the many to the few. Understanding this pattern is not just theory, it is survival. Because in every inflationary cycle, there are people who lose everything and people who position themselves to gain. When the Fed prints, asset prices rise first. Stocks, commodities, real estate all benefit before consumer prices catch up. That is why the rich seem to get richer during crises. They are not lucky, they are aligned with the system. The real question is whether you can be too. Inflation punishes cash and rewards assets. It punishes savers and rewards borrowers. It destroys fixed income and elevates variable income. To survive this environment, you cannot think like a saver. You must think like an investor. Not a gambler chasing quick trades, but someone who understands that the currency itself is losing value, and the only defense is to own things that cannot be printed. That could mean stocks in strong companies, commodities, gold, land, or even skills and businesses that generate value regardless of currency. In the coming years, as the debt expands and printing continues, those who hold assets will survive, while those who hold cash will slowly drown. It sounds harsh, but that is the design. Inflation is not fair, but it is predictable. Once you see the pattern, you stop being the victim of it. Think about history. In the Weimar Republic, in Zimbabwe, in Argentina, every time governments printed to solve problems, the result was the same: temporary relief followed by collapse. The US might not collapse overnight, but the principle is identical. The more they print, the less each dollar means. The question is not whether inflation will return, it is when and how severe. And if you pay attention to recent moves, you can already see the signs. The national debt is rising faster than ever. The interest burden is unsustainable. Political pressure to keep spending is enormous. Eventually, the Fed will be forced to choose between protecting the dollar or saving the system. History says they will save the system, which means the printer will roar again. And when it does, inflation will surge again, maybe not instantly, but inevitably. And as before, they will call it necessary, temporary, transitory, all the same words used to calm you while value drains from your pocket. The irony is that this inflationary destruction will also create opportunity. Crises always do. The same chaos that wipes out savers can build fortunes for the prepared. Those who position early, who understand what assets thrive when money weakens, can turn the theft into a transfer back to themselves. Inflation destroys money, but it inflates value. If you own things people need, things that cannot be printed: land, energy, production, you gain while others lose. The cycle rewards awareness. But awareness is rare because the system thrives on distraction. Media focuses on politics, trends, entertainment, anything but monetary policy. Because if people understood how the system truly worked, they would demand change. Until then, the game continues. The inflation theft is the greatest financial illusion ever performed. It takes from everyone, gives to the few, and disguises itself as progress. And the next phase is already forming. As debt grows and productivity stagnates, Printing will return under new names: stimulus, digital transition, or green investment. Each will be justified. Each will sound noble. But beneath the branding, it will be the same mechanism. More money created from nothing. More value drained from what you hold. The only defense is knowledge and preparation. Because this is not the last time the Fed will do it. The next print wave will be bigger, faster, and digital. And when it happens, you will see another wealth transfer, the largest since 2020. Only this time, you can choose what side of it you are on. Because once you understand that inflation is not an accident but a feature, you stop being a spectator. You stop believing in the illusion that your dollars are safe. And you start acting like those who quietly benefit from the chaos. You start learning how to use the very forces that were meant to take from you to work for you instead. The game does not stop, but you can play it smarter. You can turn the theft into strategy. The era of blind trust in central banks is ending. The era of financial awareness is just beginning.